This is the plaintiff, Eric Anderson. He says he hired the defendant to refurbish a staircase at a residential building he had just purchased and needed to fix up. Turns out the defendant did the work all wrong. The building inspector chewed him out because no permits were filed, and now he's out a whole heap of money due to the defendant's ineptness. So he's suing him for $3,536.35, the amount he's due. This is the defendant, Lawrence Hogan. He says he's a licensed contractor who's been in the business for 35 plus years. The plaintiff was in charge of the whole project and basically just hired him as a day laborer. The plaintiff told him a permit wasn't required because he was only renovating what was already there. Bottom line, the plaintiff should have gotten the permit. He did what he was hired to do, and that's that. He's accused, making a mess of things. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,893.81 for unpaid labor and materials.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket, the plaintiff hired the defendant to rehab his staircase, but the dude didn't get permits, and now the plaintiff says he's out of bundle. But the defendant says he did what he was hired to do. It's the case of stairway, but not to heaven.
Ives Anderson LLC, represented by Eric Anderson. You're Eric? Okay. You are suing Lawrence Hogan LLC, represented by Mr. Hogan, Lawrence Hogan, for $3,536.35 in damages that you say you are out as a result of shoddy workmanship by Mr. Hogan. You are counterclaiming against him $1,893.81 in unpaid fees for the job. Tell me what's going on.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I hired the defendant to perform some porch repairs on an old home I had just bought. And
was it an apartment building or an old home?
It's a multifamily converted from a 1850s single family.
1850s?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, can I see it? Do you have a picture?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I love it. Should I give you the whole?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my whole pack of evidence, actually.
Okay. All right. Let me just see the picture. Okay.
And that's the back, actually, which is where the porch was being worked on. The front looks much better.
Do you have a picture of the front?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. All right. So go on.
The scope of the work was to construct brand new 2 sets of steps and also shore up a couple of sagging porches that those steps are built up to.
Okay.
After getting into it, the defendant then told me that some concrete work would be needed. Thinking he was the expert, I agreed, and later found out when the building official stopped by that all of the concrete work would have to be taken out because it didn't go down 42 inches deep into the ground.
Back it up.
Okay.
You want to do work on it. The work you need to do is to,
was just to rebuild the rotted wooden steps and also to shore up the sag in the porch.
Okay. And so had you agreed upon a price and now the price was more expensive?
We had agreed that I could afford 5 days at $700 a day.
Did he say to you, once he talked to you about concrete being used to shore it up, did it become more expensive or no?
Well, it wasn't discussed. It was originally that 5 days was going to get me what I wanted.
Okay.
99%.
So he tells you, I think we should do it this way.
Right. And then we didn't discuss the schedule at that point.
Okay.
I was just hoping.
Did anybody pull a permit?
No.
No. You didn't pull a permit. He didn't pull a permit. Do you have anything in writing with him?
His invoice, and he signed.
Give me anything he wrote.
Okay, so there is a concrete delivery invoice that he signed, even though I paid for it.
I guess everybody thought that because it was in the backyard, you weren't going to get caught, or what?
It was new. It was new to me. I didn't have any contractor experience to speak of. This building, I had just purchased it.
So neither of you ever before the job discussed permitting or no permitting?
No, I never brought it up. He never brought it up.
Yeah, what's your version on that?
That's not true, Your Honor. At the time that I went there and I priced the job out and we agreed that he had a certain amount of money that he was going to pay, he could afford to pay me for 5 days. I said to him, you got a permit on this? I said, because I know you're working in the back. He has another building behind this that he's working on that I figured for sure he had a permit on. And I asked him, he said, no, I don't have a permit on it. I'm doing it all myself. And I said,
what does
you want to get a permit on this one? He
getting a permit? Even if you do it yourself, you got to get a permit. Are you a licensed contractor?
Yes, I am.
So then you know that.
Right. But I'm working for him. He hired me to work by the hour. He's there every day giving me jurisdiction every morning.
I don't know what you're talking about. He doesn't give you jurisdiction. You know you need a permit. You're kind of an accomplice. Why are you pretending that you're just following orders? I'm just following orders. What is that?
No, he needs the permit. He hired me to do this work for him.
Yeah, and you're doing unpermitted work. You just confessed to knowing that you're doing unpermitted work and you're a licensed contractor.
I don't agree with that because anybody could hire me to do something in their house. And if it turns out...
you can pretend to have no knowledge of whether they've pulled a permit, but you can't because you just admitted to me that you knew he didn't pull a permit. And then you proceeded to work. Now let's talk about the quality of the work itself, permit or no permit. An inspector comes by. Do you get cited?
I wasn't there. He left a business card.
So you call him.
I called him and he chews me out and he says, I got to come in and talk to him.
So you go down to see him.
And he says, is this concrete work down 42 inches at least? And I said, I don't know. I honestly wasn't sure. So I dug it up. I called him back. I said, nope, it's not. He said, it all has to come out.
What's that about?
When it turned out that this had been built on piles of rock with a little bit of concrete on the top of it with a cedar post holding this porch up. All those had been rotted away. We went and got Eric. He looked at it all. He said, what are we going to do? I said, we can dig these down. He goes, I don't want you to keep digging all this stuff because I don't have money for this.
Do you know that it's supposed to be 42 inches deep and you're saying that you didn't make it according to code because the homeowner made you not make it according to code?
Yes. He supervised it.
How far do you think that's going to go?
Well, because he's the one that told me to pour it that way.
You're telling me that he told you how many inches to pour?
Yep. He said, that's far enough. You don't have to go any further. We hit some big rocks on the bottom.
Did you tell him how far?
That's a complete and utter fabrication. That is an outright lie. After he initially poured, I went out there, and even in my limited knowledge, I knew it should be deeper than 20 or 24 inches. And I complained about it, and he called for double pouring more on top of the first pour with a second load of concrete, but then like building up the earth around it.
Did double pouring happen? Did you bring out another?
Yes, it was a double pour.
Okay, but that doesn't happen as a result of his complaint? Why would double pouring happen?
No, that was his suggestion to do the double pour. And
so he is complaining about how deep you went.
Yeah.
How are you going to look me in the eye and tell me that the decision of how deep you went was his? He complained about it, forcing you to get a second pour.
Your Honor, he's complaining because he got caught. He was planning on taking no permits out on this because he didn't want to get involved in it.
You know what? Even if he got caught, if you had poured it right, there wouldn't be a problem. All that would have to happen is he'd have to apply for a permit. He'd have to pay for a permit. He wouldn't have to pay to excavate, get an engineer's report, all the concrete delivery. All this wouldn't be happening if you had done it right. All you had to do, if you were all going to fly by the seat of your pants and not get a permit, is do it right anyway, in case you got caught.
He had no money to pay for it.
The one guy with the license who should know what the building code says went, it's deep enough. And then you admit that he says to you, this isn't deep enough, and that you have to go, but you look me in the eye and say, he decided that it was deep enough both times. Really? Why did he tell you to bring another truck?
So if you hire a licensed contractor and tell him do the work without permits, and he's licensed, can he legally do that work?
No. It's his job to know the law and the rules, and he needs to pull the permit.
What do you think?
I have no.
You don't know. Who's going to get the last word here?
Cool. What if he's a friend? Huh? What if it's just like a favor?
Yeah, but what if he's like a contractor and he's licensed?
Oh, then.
Oh yeah, dude. Going inside the courtroom.
Where do you get your numbers from?
Okay, I have invoices and proof of payment for the excavation to remove all the stuff, the cost of the concrete that the defendant directed me to order, and then the invoice from the structural engineers that came out.
Did you ever pay him or you didn't pay him?
Yes, I paid him for the first 3 days, but then he asked the concrete guy to dump some concrete in our backyard, which I didn't appreciate, and it just set me off.
This is
and I fired him.
before or after the inspector comes on?
Before the inspector came.
Before the inspector comes on. So you fired him before the inspector came out?
For dumping stuff in my backyard and knowing that things were not deep enough and knowing that things were not being done right.
Did you end up getting in trouble for not did they make you pull a permit?
Yes.
Did you pull a permit?
Yes.
What did the permit cost you?
Several $100s.
Several $100.
Yeah.
Instead of $3,500, right?
Right.
Lo barato sale caro, as my grandmother used to tell me. The cheap comes out expensive.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you pull a permit is that the city is on top of your contractor. And the city makes sure that it's being done according to code, okay? Which means it's going to withstand everything that it needs to withstand and that they're not going to make you rip it apart.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So give me the estimate for the excavation. Now, what's the engineer's report about? It's $600 for an engineer's report.
Well, because the inspector wasn't under any obligation to issue a document about the defendant's work.
So instead of you getting something from him, you paid an engineer to prove that he didn't pour it deep enough.
That's all there is to it, right?
And tell me about your counterclaim.
My counterclaim is from materials that he was supposed to get for me and sent me out just before the concrete truck had come for the last pour, that he wanted rebarb in. So we had to run to Home Depot and buy that. He never paid me back for that.
How much did you collect for this job?
He gave me one check for $2,100.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
That's 3 days' pay.
Yep. Which you are not suing for. He's not suing you for that. He's suing you for excavation. I find that he's entitled to it. I think you're the professional and you need to be responsible for doing it. Even if you guys are all trying to fly by night and under the radar, you still have to do it according to code. And I'm not going to listen to, the homeowner who's never done this before is calling the shots on how deep it has to be. I also, by the way, don't believe it. I know he's complaining about how you're doing it while you're doing it. All right. So I'm going to order you to pay the $1,800. I'm going to order you to pay the $603.54 and the $532.81, which is money that he spent on concrete that is all going to have to be ripped out now. I am not going to order you to pay the $600 for the engineer's report because I frankly got this sneaking suspicion that you kind of talked the guy out of citing you. All right. So I find in favor of the plaintiff in the amount of $2,936.35. And in case it wasn't obvious from what I'm saying on your counterclaim, 0.
See what the defendant has to say coming out here. Seems like you should have known better than to do the job this way with all the experience.
Well, I have 35 years, and we do know that you need permits. But when the man is telling you he doesn't want us to put any more money into this and only stop here,
so you do whatever he says.
Yes.
Yeah, in that particular case,
for money,
I do.
You do whatever he says. In that case,
no, that's not true. Not for money. You do anything that he does.
Mm-hmm.
We were there to restore it. It turned out there was no things, and he says, "I don't have any."
Now let's say the same thing happens again, and the guy tells you to do something next time.
It won't happen again.
Right, you won't do it that way again.
No,
so you shouldn't have done it the first time.
That's right.
All right, head right down this way. All right, come on in here. All right, so you do collect here, but ignorance is usually no excuse for a case.
The decision was very fair. I learned a valuable lesson.
Which was?
Full permit.
Full permit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Harvey?
There are a lot of states that have something called a state contractors licensing board. And that means that a licensed contractor has to put up a bond before doing work. And they also have mediation services, a number of them, where they can mediate disputes with fees. You should check your state to see if they have one. You can do that short of going to court.